I'm Wan Kwong Weng, Chairperson to the Purple Parade Working Committee. We are glad to have you join us for this session. Purple Parade is Singapore's largest ground-up movement to support inclusion and celebrate abilities of persons with disabilities. This movement is supported by the Central Singapore Community Development Council as well as other partners from the people, public and private sectors. Today's program is part of a lineup of activities for the Purple Parade that comprises conversations, campaigns and concerts. In today's live chat session, we would like to explore the lived experiences of persons with disabilities and their unique stories. You will hear firsthand from our guests as they share their personal journeys and inspirational stories. We hope you will find the session enjoyable and enriching. We will be starting the program shortly. Before we begin, I would like to remind you to like and follow the Purple Parade on Facebook and Instagram to keep up with the latest happenings. You will definitely not want to miss out. Join us as we support inclusion and celebrate abilities together.
Hi everybody and welcome to the Purple Parade's Purple Conversations live chats. My name is Eunice Olsen and it's my absolute privilege to be your host of this live chat session. And of course, we have with us June from the Singapore Association for the Deaf, our sign language interpreter for today, and also the very good folks from Caption Cube who are helping us with live captioning. Very important, okay? Now, please save this date also for the main event of the Purple Parade. We've got the parade, and this is the conversations. But the parade this year, it is going to be on Saturday, 30th October 2021 at 3 p.m. Please save the date. Of course, we have a very special concert featuring a program lineup that really promises to be inclusive, engaging, and very, very heartwarming as well. I'm really looking forward to it and I hope you are. So please lock in the date to your calendar right now, okay? Now, today's live chat is part of the conversation segment of the Purple Parade, supported, of course, by the Central Singapore Community Development Council and partners from the public, private and people sectors. And as our chairman was saying, the aim of our live chats is to explore the lived experiences of persons with disabilities and their very unique stories. And as we delve into their story and of course their journey, we're going to find out a little bit more about their personal journeys, how they've not only received but are very much empowered to give back to society in so many different ways as well. Now, today, also, please join in the conversation if you want, and if you have any questions for our guest today, you can just type your questions in the comment section. The questions will get to me, and we will try to answer as many as possible. So engage with us on your in the chat, and just put any comments or questions that you might have. Now, today, our very special guest is Jonathan Tiong. Jonathan is a person with spinal muscular atrophy, and he's also a full-time communications associate at GIC. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
Hi, so nice to see you. Thank you so much for taking time off your very busy schedule to join us today. Really appreciate it. Really looking forward to our conversation. Now, I want to start a little bit to talk a little bit about your background. Right now, you're working at GIC in the communications department. I want to know a little bit about what you do and also what made you interested to study communications and media.
Well, as part of my job, my main role is focused on internal comms. So on a day-to-day basis, what I do is basically to produce and publish long-form articles that keep employees informed and engaged about what's going on around the company. And as an editor and an editorial specialist, I also occasionally consult with senior management and other departments on any sort of written comms that they're working on. As for what got me interested in the field of comms, I went through a phase in my late teens when I was utterly obsessed with water volley. I think as Singaporeans will all be familiar with who Water Wally is. He's that very cute water drop mascot of PUB, right? And for whatever reason, I fell in love with Water Wally because he's really cute, right? His little eyes and his little heart-shaped face. And those were the years when PUB was at the very top of their social media game. I think for all the public sector agencies back then, they were the one of the best in terms of engagement on social media, at least in my opinion. Um, and the people behind the accounts at PUB actually took notice of the fact that hey, I was always hanging around, on the comments, DMing them about all kinds of things, right? And
Awesome.
to their credit, they actually took the effort to reach out and build a relationship with me, and that's what PR is all about, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I'm still friends with the main social media guy from back then. I think he might even be watching this stream right
Oh,
now. Um,
hi to your friend.
yeah. So I thought back then that it'd be really cool, right, to do something like that. Run Facebook contests, make people happy, message people online every day. Um, Obviously, having studied more into media, I know that's not what they do every day, right? Social media work has a lot to do with metrics, measuring the success of your campaigns, and that's something I don't like to do. I don't like numbers. I don't like stats. And so, I found that words were more my thing. So as I studied more into comms, I settled into this nice little niche where I work with words rather than anything else. And words are so much more fun. I think you can do a lot with words. Yeah.
And you have done a lot with words. I mean, you started writing really a lot of different articles, right, for news publications. In fact, if you kind of Google Jonathan Tiong and then publications or articles, you'll find that a whole list of articles, and you can read from them. So, when and why, Jonathan, did you start kind of advocating for people with disabilities? Because you started writing in all these news publications about disabilities, right?
Yeah, well, actually, I never started with the intention of being an advocate. I think my earlier articles had nothing to do with disability. I really started writing just for fun, just for the thrills of it. Getting your byline in the news is it's exciting, right? It gives you a dopamine hit. And really to hone my skills in writing. Um, One day I decided to write about death. Um, and I think we can talk about that a bit more. But the editor told me that that piece did very well. And it was then that I realized that there's a gap in the market that I could fill. And that gap being the voice of a disabled person living a disabled life, telling it like it is, without all the fluff and the nonsense that you sometimes get in feature articles or even biographies, right? And so my opinions, my brand of storytelling, advocacy, is quite different. It's very pragmatic, hard-nosed, um, and not so influenced by the fluffy idealism that tends to surround disability-related narratives.
Now, and I read that article, right, the one that you're talking about, disability and death, and I felt it was very poignant. It was very personal, and I think it applied to like every one of us. It was kind of like a, hey, we need to talk about this more. So, why do you think that the idea of disability and death, right? Why do you think it's so? It's such an important aspect to discuss.
Well, to be frank, none of us is getting out of this life alive, right? We're all going to die. We should all learn to
Yes.
face up to it sooner rather than later. Um, for me, I'm in the sort of like limbo state. My health is fragile, and I could literally drop dead at any moment. It could be today or it could be years from now, and I don't know. Not having an expiry date, unlike some other diseases that kill quite quickly, and within a more defined period, um, can be annoying because it causes a lot of uncertainty. Um, Makes it very difficult to plan for the future, right? I don't know whether I'm planning for 1 year later or 10 years later. I don't know. But not having a normal lifespan can also have perks, right? For example, I don't need to care about retirement. That's something that I always don't actually care about. But jokes aside,
Yes.
I think thinking about our mortality is a great exercise in humility, right? Um,
Mm.
and you don't even have to be sick, right? I think humans are one of the weakest kinds of creatures on this earth. You might die tomorrow walking under a HDB and a flower pot drops on your head. Um, Thinking about that helps you live life with a greater sense of perspective. It helps you realize what's actually important. Um, like for example, I think many people have this tendency to hold on to grudges.
Yeah.
Right? People have really long memories for the bad things that other people did to them. But I always feel like, don't waste time, don't waste energy on things like that. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's kind of like don't sweat the small stuff, right,
Exactly.
Jonathan?
Yeah.
And it's just so easy to say, right? But it really is true, isn't it? I mean, we have to look at what matters in life. And of course, one thing that matters very, very much, of course, and that has come into the kind of the forefront, right? Well, I would say the pandemic has kind of accelerated the conversation, even though a lot of people have been always working on it. Of course, the 10th of October, which is tomorrow, is World Mental Health Day. Now, kind of alluding to a little bit what you said before, do you think this is talked about enough when it comes to people with disabilities? And why do you think it's important to have more conversations around this? And how do you think we can have more conversations around this, Jonathan?
I think for physically disabled people like me, one of the things that always happens is people notice the immediately apparent problem, which is
Mm,
the physical problem, right?
right.
Doctors take one look at you and say, oh, this person has obviously a physical medical problem. Lay people look at you and they know that you are physically sick or unwell. Um, what this causes is, I think, a fixation on the
Mm,
physical problem at the expense of everything else. People tend to not realize that the physical is just one aspect of someone, right? Um,
yeah.
Living with any disability or severe medical problem is hard. To be honest, life actually does suck pretty bad. For me, 23 years, right, I've been alive, and every day is a struggle, right? Um, every day you try to adapt, you try to function, you try
Mm,
to make it through a society that isn't meant for you. Um, Fighting not only the disadvantages in society, but your own body, which is actively trying to go against everything you're trying to achieve. Right? Your own body is failing. It's getting weaker every day. It's causing you pain, discomfort. And at key moments like, the transition to adulthood, things get worse. Um, I recently see all my peers moving on to the next phase of life. They're getting flats, they're getting married, they're moving out. It's hard not to feel left out, like you're missing out. And all these things that I want but can never have. It doesn't matter how much money I make, right? All these things are things that money can't buy. And the reality is, I will never have them. So, in my darkest moments, I sometimes feel like, what's this endless cycle that I'm trapped in? I'm running but getting nowhere. I live day to day. I wake up every day, but I'm not actually achieving what I want. And sometimes I wonder, is it better to be dead? And all my life I've just lurched from feelings of anxiety, despair, hopelessness, for as long as I can remember. But because I've always been able to function, to fulfill my responsibilities, right? As a student, I always did well. I never showed outwardly any signs that, I was struggling. Nobody noticed or offered any help. And I just kind of normalized it, internalized it, and, carried on. But it is a tremendous effort to mask it over many, many years. And,
Sure.
I just hope that by opening up about this today, and I fully intend to continue talking about this even after today, that, medical professionals, caregivers, educators, anybody who's involved in disability, in caring for someone with a disability, will come to realize that just because someone is physically broken, it doesn't mean that nothing else is broken that you can't see. Mental health advocates often encourage people to ask, "Are you okay?" Right? That's a simple but powerful question to start a conversation. Right? So I really hope that ask the disabled person, "Are you okay?" Because most of the time, I can tell you we are not okay.
Well, thanks for saying that, Jonathan. I think you're absolutely right. That's the thing, right? I mean, you can't see what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, mental health. You can't see if the person's going through something. You can't tell if a person, because a lot of people can put on a front, right? And we've kind of learned to do that, isn't it? You just kind of keep going day by day. And you're right. The very powerful question that we should ask each other a lot more is, "Are you okay?" And it's a very simple, like you said, but powerful question. And it's also kind of interesting that, the Purple Parade's coming up in October 30th. We've had campaigns running, and this month also we're talking about mental health. So it's nice to be able to bring both issues together as well, isn't it?
Yes,
To
exactly.
have that
And
common.
I felt that this was a very good coincidence and a very good nexus for the two topics to be raised together, which I have not seen happen before. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be separate, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is a certain narrative, right, Jonathan, around people with disabilities. So, in your opinion, as somebody who writes extensively about this subject, who speaks extensively about this, who has that lived experience, how do you think that the narrative around disabilities has to evolve?
I feel like in public discourse we've been going round and round in circles but going nowhere. We've been arguing non-stop and stuck on this one topic, which is what we call a person with disability, or a disabled person, or differently able, or handicapped, or special needs. There's a lot of terms floating around, and if you open social media and go to any disability related post, you will see people fighting about it. What's acceptable, what isn't, what's acceptable changes from time to time, from person to person, and I think this constant obsession is hindering real progress on the issues that actually matter. People are too afraid now to even talk about stuff because, what if I cause offense? You know, um, I think in Singapore we are quite familiar with this term, the chilling effect, right? Every time government passes some law about speech, and then people will say, "Oh, there's a chilling effect," and there is a chilling effect on disability discussion when you keep harping on terminologies, because then people just find it safer not to say anything.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, like again coming back to what you said earlier. Sometimes we just shouldn't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And I think somebody else told me this before as well. I think he said, he said to me, if you're not sure, just ask the person, how they want to be referred to. I think
Yeah,
that's the best thing,
exactly.
isn't it? Honest conversation, like how would you like me to refer, or what term would you like me to use, instead of saying I think I know what to say, but you might end up making somebody uncomfortable,
Yeah,
right? So the
exactly.
best is,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I mean, for me, I always just go with disabled person, but I know some other disabled people don't like it. So everybody has their own preferences. The best policy is just ask.
Absolutely. Now, just also, the idea of inclusion and just being an inclusive society, this is something that we hear about a lot of the time, right? Especially in the past, maybe 5 to 10 years, and even moving forward as well. I mean, it's always been a priority, but we also know that it takes all of us to kind of move that forward. So, what do you think we can do to better close the inclusion gap?
I think really to build on what I was saying about terminologies, right? Definitely to reduce the emphasis on it would help. I think it's always important to look at the intent of the speaker
Yeah.
rather than jumping to take offense at whatever they say. I think generally people don't purposely set out to hurt with their words. I don't think the world is such a cruel place. Generally, people are sincere and innocent. If they say something and you don't like it, instead of jumping to offense and assuming that, oh, they're out to hurt me, um, cut them some slack, give them the benefit of the doubt, and, really, instead of like embarking on a mob mentality, right, and trying to lynch them for what they say. Um, if non-disabled people are so afraid of saying the wrong thing that they, entirely avoid interacting with the disabled, then we won't have a problem with the inclusion we get. We will have a problem with an inclusion valley or an inclusion canyon or whatever a bigger gap is. You know? So
Yeah.
yeah, this terminology thing isn't helping at all.
Yeah, and I think coming back to what we're saying also, right, Jonathan, it's important to just ask, like, don't be scared to like, oh, I'm going to say the wrong thing. And sometimes if you just say like, I'm not sure and I just want to know, right? And I think people will be happy to have a conversation about it, right? I mean, a person with
Yes.
disability would say, actually, I would rather, you please correct me if I'm wrong, I would rather you ask rather than everybody is kind of like walking on thin ice and, I'm not sure, am I going to offend you? And sometimes it's just to come out and just say it, right?
Yeah, I think openness and transparency and really just talking honestly about things is always the best policy.
Now, obviously, the media has a very big part to play when we talk about the narrative around people with disabilities. And being somebody who writes extensively for the media, what do you think of the media's coverage of disabilities, and really, what do you want to see change?
Well, I think this is one of my pet peeves, right? It's really the I word, inspiration. The media sticks to this cliche that disabled people are very inspiring. Taking me for an example, right? I know a lot of people always tell me, "Oh, John, you're very inspiring." Um, I beg to differ. I don't think so. To be honest, I feel that all I've done is to make the best out of a bad situation. Every day I wake up, I flail around desperately, trying to make it to the end of the day in one piece as best as I can. And, with the generous help of so many people along the way, somehow stumbled into relative success. I don't think it was all me, and I don't think it was something very inspiring. Um, the saying goes that it takes a village to raise a child, right? And I
Yeah.
would say, and also a lot of happy coincidences. Disabled people frankly need a lot more help to reach success, right? And it's really embarrassing, but the media seems to portray the disabled as heroes who achieve amazing things because they have superhuman levels of determination, right? I think you shouldn't omit all the times when we actually did feel like giving up. I think there's a lot of perception out there that disabled people never give up. Trust me, I think we did want to many, many, many times, but we didn't because of a sense of responsibility, right? To the people who would be really disappointed if we did. And the media must acknowledge that. It must also acknowledge the struggles and the pain, physical and mental pain, that we go through just trying to do the simplest things, and my wish for the media would be for them to learn to tell the whole story and not just the story that people are comfortable with. Don't flatten disabled people into one-dimensional caricatures who exist only to sell the nonsensical idea that you can do anything as long as you put your mind to it. Right? That really doesn't work. If I put my mind to it now, can I stand up and walk away from this interview? No, I can't. I'm stuck here. Right? But besides, my disability and my perceived success, I want people to know my struggles, my failures, and my pain, right? I'm so much more than just the disabled guy who works in GIC, right? I'm a video game player. I love medical dramas, police shows, Twitch streamers. So tell the story of the whole me, not just the disabled yet successful me.
It's kind of like, let's just talk about the struggles, right? I mean, we can just talk about that. It's okay. It doesn't have to be like, how would I say this? Maybe, it doesn't always have to be the inspiration narrative. Is that
Yeah,
what you
exactly,
mean?
right? And I think when sometimes media goes to the opposite extreme, and then they focus on all the struggles, and then the end game of the article would be, but then he became successful, right?
Yeah.
I think the struggles are the story in themselves. The story is the
Exactly.
bitterness. You don't have to add sugar to the bitterness to make it palatable, because the story is in the bitterness.
Absolutely. It's like we can talk about the struggles and that's okay, and we can end there.
Yeah,
right? It
exactly.
doesn't have to be but, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Now, Jonathan, right before we go to the Facebook comments, we have a couple more questions for you, and the comments are kind of flooding in, which is great. And I just wanted to ask you also. I mean, you talk a lot about not sweating the small stuff, right? So, what in life really matters to you, John?
Well, I would say relationships and happiness, right?
Mm,
Um, and this is something I think about a lot as I get older and you know what, it's probably going to be the last phase of my life, and I wonder, um, so every day I wake up, I work 8, 9 hours, 10 hours a day, sometimes 11, and I love my job. I really do. When I complete an assignment well, my boss is happy. I'm happy. Um, it lets me forget all my limitations.
mm,
All the things I can't do, and I feel happy for a while, right? Um, but then I always make it a point to remember that I'm not married to the job.
mm.
The job
Yeah,
is a means to an end. My job
yeah.
has given me the opportunity to get to know people, some of whom have become my friends, right? And when I talk to them, I'm happy, right? The job has given me an opportunity to earn an income, and with this income, I can buy nice things for the people that I like. And when I see them happy, I'm happy, right? And with the income, I can buy whatever I want, whenever I want. I don't have to ask, hey, daddy, mommy, I want this thing, right? I just go and get it. Um, and that makes me happy, and the pursuit of happiness is probably the most difficult puzzle in the lives of humans. And
Mm.
I don't have the answer, but I'm pretty sure that it's related to the people that we love, the people that we are loved by, and the people that we give love to, right? Work is important, but happiness lies elsewhere, and so I don't let it consume my life, and I hope that people don't let it consume theirs. I think we were talking about mental health earlier, right? And burnout is one of the things that is a hot topic of the day, right? But because of the blurring of work-life boundaries. So I really, really hope that people would learn to prioritize things in their life. That people matter, the work doesn't. You know, your job will replace you if you die, but the people that you love, you will leave a hole that will never be replaced.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, those are very, very wise words, Jonathan. It's kind of like the graveyards of the world are filled with indispensable people.
Yeah.
So while we are alive, we should really, really, kind of like what you said, right? The people who we love, who give us love, and whom we give love to. And that's
Yes.
obviously very, very important, just always to prioritize these relationships. And just kind of wanted to ask you something about like what us individuals can do, right? And to move the idea of inclusion forward. So, what advice do you have for all of us, like how we can close that gap that you mentioned about?
Mm. So, credit where it's due. I think in Singapore, we've really advanced inclusion a lot in the education sector. Um, all schools now have trained special needs officers. The
Mm,
facilities are modernizing very well and becoming a lot more accessible. Um, the effect of this is that more and more disabled students are coming out with higher qualifications,
mm,
degrees, and there's nowhere for them to go. The bottleneck now is employment, right? And that's the new frontier that we really have to push in terms of inclusivity is hiring, encouraging more organizations to hire the disabled. Companies like GIC, which have taken the first step into hiring the disabled, have a role to play. I feel that in encouraging organizations who haven't, because they're scared, right? Show them that it can be done. Advocate for it. Because I think a lot of companies have this fear that it costs a lot or it's a lot of work to encourage, to accommodate a disabled person, right? But companies which have already done it can show how actually that's not true.
Yeah.
I think one good way to start is always to dip your toe in the water and offer internships. Internships are like a try before you buy kind of scheme, right? And that's what GIC did. They offer internships, right? And that's how I got in. I was an intern, and then they decided, that's something we can do. Let's convert him to a permanent role. So that's a really good way to start. And for individual colleagues of the disabled, what they can do is contribute to word of mouth, and really tell people, yeah, I have a disabled employee. He's disabled. Acknowledge that, but also recognize the value add that they bring to the team. Both in work and maybe even in non-work related context, right? And that's something my own higher ups, my own colleagues really do well, and something that I'm actually very, very thankful about.
Fantastic. And I know a lot of your colleagues are tuning in as we speak, Jonathan, and I'm going to read out some of these beautiful, beautiful comments that have come in. There's so many things to read. But before that, we have a question, Jonathan, from Titing. Titing wants to say, hi, Jonathan. Thanks so much for the insightful sharing today. Can you please give a word of encouragement to students with disability, especially to students who are graduating soon and entering the workforce? What do you want to say to them, Jonathan?
Okay, I have this. I would say that for disabled people, we live in a VUCA world, right? I think people always talk about VUCA world. Even before COVID and even after COVID is gone, disabled people will always be in VUCA world. That's just the nature of being disabled. It's very hard to tell for certain what's going to happen, right, with your medical situation. The way to live with something like that, I feel, is to just focus on the next step, to just focus on the next day or the next stage of your life, if you have one, or your next goal that you're working towards. If you think long term, if you have big plans, it can all get really, really overwhelming. And you'll be paralyzed with fear. At least that's what it was for me, and I found that the way to manage it really is what's immediately ahead. Focus on that and just work towards that, and don't worry about anything else. For the disabled, I think, okay, maybe I will give a very practical advice, right? Particularly for graduating students, right? Looking for a job. it's one of the biggest hurdles you probably ever face. Simply because the opportunities are maybe still not there, especially if you try to look for them yourself. I'm not being paid to promote SG Enable, but I'm going to promote SG Enable right now. The reason is because they have helped me a lot. I've had 2 internships, both courtesy of SG Enable. They just literally found them for me. All I had to do was turn up for the interview, pass it, and turn up for work. Including my job, right, at GIC, and which turned out to be fantastic. So for the disabled, soon to graduate students, I would really hope that they would turn to SG Enable. It is a fantastic resource. Really, please tap on it. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. That was fantastic. And I also just want to say and add in something, and maybe I can from, and Jonathan also, please chime in if you would. Also, I think for our friends who are disabled, just think about it also as not being afraid to ask questions to your employer or your future employers. I mean, if there's something that's weighing very heavily on your mind, I don't know if you agree, Jonathan, that they should just be kind of honest and just ask if they have any concerns, whether about the workplace culture or about their colleagues. What do you think, John?
Yeah, did I mention earlier that openness and transparency are the best policy, right? I always feel that when you go into any stage of your life, whether it's a new school or a new employer, be upfront about the special needs, be upfront about your disability, because it's better to be rejected because of your disability than to hide it. Go in to the company, find that it's a toxic, non-disabled friendly culture, and then suffer and struggle. Better to find out early it's not a good fit for me. Let's just call it quits and part ways before we even start.
Absolutely. We have tons of comments that I'm just so excited to read out. From Yasmin. Yasmin says that, and she's your colleague at GIC, she says, we at GIC are very blessed to have John as a colleague. Thanks so much, Yasmin. Of course, John, your dad has replied. Ben has replied, hey, Yasmin. I would also say that John is very blessed to have all of you in GIC as colleagues. Thank you all. Jonathan, what do you want to say to your colleagues before I read out some other really nice comments?
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Yasmin is actually my boss, not just a colleague. Yeah, so I'm actually very fortunate to have a bunch of colleagues like Yasmin, Sylvia, Lei Chun. I see they have all commented, and I'm really very blessed to have them. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Yasmin. And also we have a comment from Denise. Denise says, thank you, John, for your perspective on not being overly obsessive about terminology, disabled, special needs, differently able. Vincent also wants to say to you, thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your positivity and story with us. And Wong Peng says, John, you are so authentic. Yes, I agree absolutely with all these beautiful comments. And Sharon Liu wants to say, thank you for sharing, John, so honestly. Also, we have comments from Susie Lau, who says, John, you spoke freely and with easy confidence. I think this is by far one of your best public appearances. Woo! You brought out the point that humans should focus on the person inside and not just the body. For everybody, really, thank you. Absolutely. And also Lei Chun says, thanks, John and Ben. I wish I could write like John and have his wits. Yes, Jonathan, you have a great sense of humor. Also, Sylvia says, very blessed to have you as a colleague and peer at work, John. I've learned a lot and I'm always in awe of your work. You write so well. Wow, John, all your fans, man. Just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, all your colleagues as well. Jonathan, do you have any, last advice or words of wisdom for all of us?
Maybe not advice, but I would just like to thank everyone for tuning in and I really hope that my unique, I like to think that it's unique because, like I said before, it's very hard-nosed pragmatism that I share
Yeah.
whenever I write or whenever I speak. It's not for everyone. I don't add sugar to anything that I serve. But I really hope that you guys took away something and enjoyed the sharing today.
Absolutely. I think we all did. I learned a lot from you. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for your
Thank you.
honesty, for your realness, for your authenticity, and just, kind of speaking about the hard truth, isn't it? Things that we don't always want to hear about, but we need to have more conversations around.
Yes.
And thank you for showing us that we can have a conversation around disability and mental health together. It doesn't have to be two separate events. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I really enjoyed this conversation. And of course, just the Muscular Dystrophy Association also wants to send love to you, Jonathan. Shimin has just put this in the Facebook comments. Thank you so much, Shimin. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for this really amazing conversation. Please continue to follow Jonathan. He has a blog. Jonathan, you want to tell us a bit more about your how we can find you on your blog?
You can Google for Jonathan's Junkyard. I call it Junkyard because it's just a collection of like random things that come out of my head. And you can just Google my name and you can find all my articles. You can connect with me on LinkedIn also. I'm very open there. Yeah.
All right, everybody. So you know how you can get in touch with Jonathan now and continue hearing stories from him. And of course, I'm sure he'll continue writing down his thoughts and giving us, kind of his words of wisdom or advice, or just speaking the hard truths to all of us. So please continue to support his work. I've learned a lot from this conversation. Thank you so much, everybody. And we really, really want to thank Jonathan, of course, for being with us here on the Purple Parade, Purple Conversations live chats today. Thank you so much, everybody. And it's obviously through conversations like this that we can understand and learn more from one another and truly, truly work together towards a compassionate and inclusive society. And today, Jonathan has shown us how we can continue to move the conversation forward. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more about Jonathan and other persons with disabilities, you can head to purpleparade.sg/stories to read more human library stories. We've got a whole collection of them. I remember talking about this last year as well, so there's a lot to read about. And of course, for more of these Purple Conversations live chats and very importantly, the latest information on the Purple Parade 2021. Stay tuned to our updates right here on the Purple Parade's Facebook page. And of course, once again, very low-so, but I'm going to say it again, please save the date. Saturday, 30th October 2021 at 3 p.m. One more time. Saturday, 30th October at 3 p.m. Please log it into your calendar, and we are going to be bringing you the main event of the Purple Parade 2021. Very excited. All of us are looking forward to that very, very much. My name is Eunice Olsen, and of course, on behalf of our sign language interpreter, June from Singapore Association for the Deaf, and our lovely friends from Caption Cube, thank you so much for joining me here on the Purple Conversations. I'll see you again, everybody. Bye. Have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.